us so that he can further make you believe those lies. None of that is true. None of that is true. And if we have the opportunity to see you one-on-one without Mr. Kelly's team present, we can get to the bottom and the core of the issue at hand so you can know that you've been manipulated. I have no doubt that you have feelings for Mr. Kelly, but it's something seriously wrong. When we started this fight over 2.5 years ago, only thing we asked simply was for a phone call to know that you was okay. I reached out to Mr. Kelly's phone multiple times, no calls. And now over 2 years later, the world sees that he's still keeping you from calling your family. So our reasons as the Savage family was not to go on a big publicity stunt, or some people say we are clout chasers. No, we're not clout chasers. We are concerned parents of our younger daughter, who was 19 at the time that she met Mr. Kelly. We just want to make sure she's mentally, physically sound, healthy, and that she's not being mistreated in any way. But as the broken promises continue, and we don't hear from her for weeks, months, years at a time, it's something that's seriously wrong. And I urge you, Gerald Griggs' team, please allow us to have a meeting with our daughter as soon as possible. We're ready anytime. Thank you.
And so the details are real easy to work out. We can meet at my office. You can have a third party present. We can make sure that the meeting is either recorded if you want to, whatever's necessary. But we want to make sure that this family reestablishes a relationship with their daughter. The purpose of all of this from the very beginning was because of the manipulation and the distraction that was occurring. We need to make sure that Joycelyn Savage is okay. If everything is okay, Thursday, she could have been here. Friday, she could have been here. Saturday, she could have been here. Sunday, she could have been here. It's Monday morning. We have not heard from Gerald Johnson. We haven't heard from anybody from Mr. Kelly's team, and we haven't heard from Joycelyn Savage. So I'm sorry. A 2.5-minute phone conversation after 2.5 years is not sufficient for loving parents to realize how their daughter is doing and what is happening in this case. So that's why we're making this public plea again to Robert Sylvester Kelly. Make Joycelyn Savage available, and make her available today. You can call me today at my office. We can set this up, and we can get to the bottom of what's happening. We'll take any questions you have now.
What are your thoughts on R. Kelly going on TV saying he can't see his kids, and yet you're saying he's keeping you from your kids?
Yeah, I mean, it's very ironic that an individual who it seems has no relationship with his children would keep a loving family away from their children. And so it further underscores the false narrative that's trying to be put out there. But we're not going to allow that to happen. What we want is an in-person meeting with Joycelyn Savage so that we can determine for ourselves what's happening and how we can be of service to help her in this trying time.
Mrs. Savage, what have the past days been like for you to have that hope that you'll finally be able to really speak with your child, to see your child, and then days later, there's nothing?
We to hear their conversation, for the call us on the phone briefly. I knew as soon as I heard her voice that the call was scripted, but at the same time, I hadn't heard her voice in years. So I wanted to be as gentle as possible and first let her know that I love her. But at the same time, I knew from the narrative of what she was saying that it was another, what I call prison call. That means a very monitored call. And what she had to state was strictly what he was telling her to say. She couldn't even say hi to her younger sisters on that call.
And yet there was that hope.
What was different about the last time that you talked with Joycelyn and getting in the room with her alone this time?
I think a lot of America do not realize how, I have to say, I see it as a modern day cult. Cults work by isolating your family members, your friends, anybody from your past. So we have the opportunity to get her one-on-one in the room, just with her, myself, and her father, grandparents, best friends, whoever that we feel that would be beneficial. I believe that the conversation will go a whole nother way, and that she will eventually realize slowly what she's been going through.
So you're planning on doing an intervention?
Possibly an intervention, but we will discuss further what will be the best. Psychologists will be considered as well.
And if she tells you she's happy where she is, if you get her in the room and she says, I'm fine, please stop this, I'm an adult, this is my choice, then what?
When we get to that point, we will deal with that, but I'm 98.9% sure that that is not the case.
So do you have this feeling that Joycelyn wants to be in communication with you more, but is being kept from doing that? I mean, because there could be a fine line there.
She is being kept from doing that. I'm 100% correct. I've confirmed that with multiple sources inside of his direct staff as well.
As a mother, what went through your heart and mind as you saw your child on network television basically pointing the finger at her own family, saying, you all put her in this situation?
I got that. And see, here's the thing. The facts and the evidence show otherwise. So we understand that she is currently in the custody and control of Mr. Kelly. And so we also understand from Gayle King, he was in the room when this conversation was occurring. We also understand that at multiple times he was coughing and asking members of her staff whether he should step in. So we believe that it was scripted. We have evidence that it was scripted. So we don't believe that those are the exact words of Joycelyn Savage.
Right, but as a mother, just to even hear it come out of your daughter's mouth, what was that like for you?
It only confirms why we're fighting, because we know 100% that it's not true and it's not her 100% her words, because as we continue to expose more evidence, that will come out what her original words are from what we know to be true. And that is that we had no knowledge of what was going on and the manipulation that he was putting her under. And we do know that she was told on other occasions to lie for him.
Yeah. And there's sufficient evidence to prove that. And so that's why we really don't want to get into a back and forth on evidence. We just want to speak to Joycelyn Savage apart from Mr. Kelly. Again, we could set up a third party to be in the room to make sure that it is translated appropriately. But we just want him to live up to his word through his publicist, Mr. Gerald Johnson, who spoke directly to us and promised us a meeting.
Did Johnson give you any indication when this was going to take place?
He said Monday or Tuesday, and that was Wednesday of last week. So I don't have a number for Mr. Johnson. I don't have a way to contact Mr. Kelly's camp. The last time we tried to contact Mr. Kelly's camp, he threatened Tim Savage. Then the time after that, he threatened them again. We tried to contact his lawyers. They haven't responded, and then this individual calls my office out of the clear blue sky and says he's going to set something up. And now we're here on Monday, and we haven't heard from him.
Do you know that he has the authority to arrange that type interview?
Well, I've seen him on many media outlets, and I saw him at the Gayle King interview with Mr. Kelly, and he told me he was Mr. Kelly's publicist, so I took him at his word. And so hopefully his word is good. I mean, when you call an attorney's office and hold yourself out as somebody, I would hope you would know that in the professional world, you're supposed to follow up on what you promise. So we hope that he is who he says he is.
How are your daughters doing, ma'am, after talking to their sister? How are they doing?
Like I said, we've been in this fight for 2 years. They're holding up. They are disappointed. My youngest daughter, she doesn't talk about it much, but we try to keep her understanding on her level. And my oldest daughter, she's holding up pretty good also, but they miss their sister dearly.
There was speculation, ma'am, about why she hesitated and ended the call once she heard her younger sister's voice. What do you think?
Without getting into too much of how isolation and cults work, Mr. Kelly has programmed the girls to go against anybody that goes against him, but he doesn't program them to go against younger siblings or sisters or younger kids, because in his words were they don't know as much as adults know. So I believe when she heard her sister's voice for the first time for almost 2 years, I think she gasped out of either maybe holding back tears or just didn't know what to say, because the phone call was scripted and she had an agenda to talk directly to me to relay a message from Mr. Kelly.
Are you hopeful that if you are in the same room, same space with your daughter, that the bond that you as a mother and your child may reappear, reconnect?
I'm hopeful, but at at the same time, due to all the trauma that's taken place over the few years and the manipulation tactics that Mr. Kelly has used, it might take some time, and we're prepared to get the proper counseling with psychologists to rebuild that relationship.
Doesn't that require Joycelyn being willing to meet? And what kind of guarantee do you have that one meeting with her is going to make her say, okay, Mom and Dad, I'm coming home?
We have no guarantees.
And I think what people need to understand is there's no greater love than the love of a parent to a child. So they're prepared for whatever the results would be for a meeting with Joycelyn. We fully expect that the meeting will produce more evidence that she wants to be with her family and have some line of communication. I mean, if she's in a consensual relationship with Mr. Kelly, there's no reason for her to not to have some line of communication with her family. So we're prepared for all outcomes. We just want that meeting, and we want it as soon as possible. Tomorrow's open, Wednesday's open, Thursday's open. Well, I take that back. You got to be in court Wednesday. So Thursday's open, Friday's open, the weekend is open. Usually make her available.
I want to say one more thing.
You would not go for an interview with Mr. Kelly there?
No.
I want to reiterate one more thing. Mr. Kelly is now portraying just having two girlfriends live in the house. When we first initially spoke out against what we knew what Mr. Kelly was doing, it was approximately 5 or 6 living girls, all being controlled by Mr. Kelly, living under less than normal circumstances and conditions.
And how do you know that?
I know that few girls have no longer with him. I won't say their names, but a few are no longer with him. His assistant, Miss Cheryl Mack, was his assistant for years, and she was one of the women that was in charge of the girls, as well as Diane Copeland.
And what are those ladies saying to you about your daughter?
Well, see, we have our own independent investigation, so we're not going to go into statements. Again, there are 2 ongoing investigations and 1 potential trial, and so we do want the community and everyone to know that there are certain things we cannot release because we want to make sure we ensure the integrity of an investigation. But we've spoken to quite a few people, a lot of which reiterate what we're saying, and a lot of which we've turned over to law enforcement.
Could you tell us a little bit more about those folks? Without telling us who they are, what are people telling you that makes you sure that Joy wants to talk to you guys again and really reconnect with you?
Well, if you heard the statement of Dominique Gardner to Gayle King, she corroborated everything that we're saying, and Dominique was the last individual that got out of the house. So we're in the process of making contact with her lawyer and interviewing her directly, but that's corroboration in and of itself.
What did Dominique say? I didn't know.
She said basically that everything that the parents are saying is the truth. They have been coached and practiced on video what to say to the parents and what to say to the media, and that Mr. Kelly has done those things in the past. This is the direct quote from Gayle King from what she spoke to Dominique Gardner. So that's just a little bit of it. If you need the video clip, I can provide it.
Without getting into the investigation too much, Ms. Savage had mentioned that we know for a fact that those are not her words. She has said something different before. Are you getting that from witnesses?
No, we're getting that from audio recordings that we have. So what we would say at this point, if people want to continue to leak audio, it can go both ways. We are prepared to fight this in a court of law in the appropriate venue, but individuals are using bloggers and social media to put out misinformation. Please stop. Honor your word and make sure that Joycelyn Savage sees her parents. That's the best thing that can be done.
So you're saying you have audio of Joycelyn saying something different than what she said in front of camera?
I have audio of a lot of people saying something different than what they're saying on camera. This is not a witch hunt. This is not an attempt to do anything but bring the truth out. You can go on national TV all day long. That doesn't change the facts and the DNA and the witnesses.
Would you say one of your goals of having this meeting is to try and get Joycelyn to meet Mr. Kelly?
No, our goal is to establish a relationship. If she decides willingly to leave Mr. Robert Sylvester Kelly, that's on her. But we want to establish a relationship back with her family and then move from there.
Do you believe that she actually loves him like she said in the interview?
I mean, she said it, so I would hope she was telling the truth. We don't have any problem with her loving Mr. Robert Sylvester Kelly. What we want her to do is to reestablish the bonds of love that have been with her since the day she opened her eyes. Any other questions?
Can we hear that audio?
Sure.
Yes.
We can.
Yes. Yes.
Joycelyn, on that audio?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. And so again, we're here. It's Monday. We were told on Wednesday that we would have a meeting by Monday or Tuesday. We are still waiting. So, Mr. Johnson, if you can hear me, you have my phone number. I wish I had yours. You need to get in touch with us immediately. If you don't get in touch with us immediately, we will continue to reach out and try to make contact with Jocelyn Savage, and we will continue to cooperate with law enforcement.